I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, it's clear to just about anyone that things in Portland not going so great these days. No matter how much you love the city, it's hard to deny the problems most of us see every day. But there is change in the air. We have a chance to drastically overhaul the way the city runs. It's a big experiment to see if it makes things better, keeps them the same, maybe creates new problems. Tonight, we're getting an early look at what that overhaul will look like in Portland city government, and that is our big story. We're just about a year out now until Portland's government completely changes. We're going to have a brand new mayor and a whole bunch more city councilors, 12 of them instead of 4. So far, one current city commissioner, Sept, says he will run for mayor. None of the others have made their plans official yet. But if any of them want another term on the council, they're going to have to rerun for their seats in whatever district they live in. Here's a reminder of what the districts look like. They're numbered 1 through 4. If you don't know or can't tell which one you're in, there's an online tool where you can put in your address. It's at portlandmaps.com. Several people are already planning to make runs for those council seats. You can check out their names there on your screen. They can't officially file until next year, same as mayor, but they've filed with the city's small donor elections program and made announcements to their supporters. Whoever's elected will be earning a decent living. The Salary Commission released their decision for each of the elected positions. The city councilors will make just over $133,000 a year. The city auditor would earn just over $168,000, and the mayor would earn over $175,000. Right now, the commissioners earn about $125,000, and the mayor earns $143,000. The other big part of the overhaul starts after the election, when everyone's sworn in and starts working. We're also getting an idea of what that could look like. The city government transition team released a draft organizational structure for city offices recently. The biggest change? Elected commissioners no longer in charge. They'll only work on voting on city policy. So running the bureaus going to be left up to the mayor. Now they do run the bureaus. After this, not so much. It's the mayor and the new city administrator. But who's in charge of what? Well, here's the proposal. The transition team laid out the city's 26 bureaus. Then they grouped some of them together into different departments. They say the idea is to have similar departments under one umbrella. The budget and finance department, for example, will be in charge of, yeah, you guessed it, budgeting and finance bureaus. Community and economic development will handle permitting, the housing bureau, Prosper Portland, and the children's levy. There's a city operations bureau, community safety, which is in charge of emergency management, fire and police, and public works, which has things like parks, the arts, the Portland Water Bureau, and PBOT. Each of these 5 departments will then report to a deputy city administrator, and that person then reports to the city administrator. So this system is so different how from what we have now? Well, we'll have 5 departments, each in charge of several bureaus. Sounds a little bit like what we have right now with 5 commissioners, each in charge of various bureaus. We took that question to the man in charge of the transition team. His name is Michael Jordan, and no, not that Michael Jordan.
The difference between 5 deputy city administrators and 5 elected city commissioners is, one, we will hire for those positions, and I'm anticipating that the new city administrator will hire for those positions with specific kinds of backgrounds, experience, training in the area that they're being hired for. That isn't always the case. That occurs in elections when people are elected to office. The other thing that is important is that today, while the bureaus do report into the 5 commissioners, there is no one of those commissioners that has authority over the others. They are not accountable to any one person. In this structure, those 5 deputies are accountable to the city administrator.
And that will be a huge difference. Jordan says the new city team will be responsible for treating the city like an enterprise, and that each of those 5 deputy administrators, they're going to be expected to work together for the good of the entire city instead of siloing with no communication between each other, which is kind of what we've seen in the current government. But there are a few people who won't be reporting to the city administrator. The mayor will be in charge of them instead. The city attorney, the chief of staff, and the chief of police. If you're keeping up, by the way, you'll remember the rest of the police bureau, well, they fall under community safety. So what happens if the police chief and the deputy city manager who's in charge of the police bureau disagree on some big issue? Who wins? Yeah, we don't know yet. But the mayor will be in charge of the chief of police. The mayor will be able to hire and fire them. The city council must approve the person chosen as chief.
The history in Portland around police services, I think, was part of the thinking by the Charter Commission that made this decision, and of course was voted on by the voters of Portland. So they basically said, yeah, the chief should be appointed and can be removed by the mayor, who's the only person other than the auditor that is elected citywide. So I think the Charter Commission felt, and voters agreed, that the chief of police position is so important that the mayor should be able to hire and remove the chief of police unilaterally.
Another new program being proposed falls under the mayor's duties. It's called Portland Solutions, and it'll handle things related to homelessness, including the Joint Office of Homeless Services, temporary shelters, and safe rest villages. The proposal for the new city organizational structure goes before the current city council next month on October 19th. They're going to make a decision then whether to start implementing it right away or if changes are needed. But before that, you get to have a say. There will be a community information session later this month, September 27th at 6 o'clock. It will be online. You can find the Zoom link at portland.gov/transition. You can offer your feedback from now until October by emailing transition@portlandoregon.gov. The transition team will review those comments and forward them to the City Council. We also want to hear your comments. What do you think about this City of Portland overhaul? Is it too similar to what we already have? Do you think it'll solve some problems? Are councilors making too much money? Maybe not enough? Send all of that to us, will you? Our address is thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave a voicemail. The phone number there on your screen, 503-226-5090. And while we're talking about the city of Portland, current city commissioners passed yet another tax break for businesses this week, hoping to convince businesses already here to stay and new ones to arrive. This offer affects downtown businesses and those in the Lloyd District and Lower Albina, with one big stipulation: they have to sign a lease for 4 years or more. The incentive passed unanimously yesterday. Businesses who sign those longer leases can waive up to $250,000 in business license taxes that they would normally owe to the city. The hope is the incentive brings workers and visitors back to downtown. Downtown foot traffic fallen off sharply. It's only 60% of what it was back in August of 2019, according to Portland Clean and Safe.
While offices in Lake Oswego, Tigard, Hillsborough, the Sunset Corridor are booming, downtown is seeing a tremendous vacancy. This is a real incentive. In fact, we have people who are waiting to see if this happened to decide if they were going to sign a lease.
It can be costly to live and do business here in the city of Portland, and we're trying to get that balance right.
Fitzpatrick, who you heard there at the end, says he understands that tax breaks like this can only do so much, and that things like safety and livability have to go with it. By the way, this is the second tax break for some Portland businesses in the last 3 weeks. Late last month, city commissioners unanimously approved certain areas in the central and northwest parts of the city to become enterprise zones. Companies in those areas can get a 5-year property tax break on new investments. For example, if a company decides to spend $20 million on a new investment, they'd be taxed about $300,000 a year. But in an enterprise zone, not so much. The company would get to keep that money for 5 years before then being fully taxed. A local public defender is suing Washington County for racial discrimination. Chloe Clay says a sheriff's deputy denied her access to a courtroom because she is black. Clay says she wanted to be a lawyer since she was 10 years old. She loves the idea. Her goal with this lawsuit is to end what her legal team calls a pattern and practice of racism in Washington County. Alma McCarty has the story.
I can think of every single one of my clients that were like a black male, also a black woman.
Only a year into her law career, Chloe Clay understands what it means to be a Black public defender in predominantly white Washington County.
To walk into a visiting cell and have someone's face light up and you haven't even said a word to them, but just because of your presence, like that's, I don't know. Like it makes me like almost want to cry just because it's like, that's the power of having representation, right?
Interactions like these make the work worth it. But Clay says being the only Black woman or Black attorney is often difficult.
I can like feel like I'm there. Like I go back to that moment.
That moment happened last November. She tells me it wasn't even her first encounter with racism as an attorney, but the incident at the law enforcement center stuck out.
I then encountered Deputy Lyle the first time. I explained to him, hey, I have a plea petition in the jail. I'm an attorney. I really need to get it. I have court at 9. I'm in a hurry.
At first, she says the deputy told her he didn't have time to help her get the paperwork from the jail lobby. Then when she tried to enter the courtroom to find someone else to help, she says the same deputy stopped her.
I got probably right to the metal detector, and Deputy Lyle then says something to the effect of like, where are you going? And I said, I'm going in the courtroom.
According to the recently filed lawsuit, the deputy didn't let her in. Instead, he demanded to see ID. Clay says she didn't have that, but offered to give him her bar number. Meanwhile, Clay says she watched the deputy let other white attorneys into the courtroom without questioning them. She says the deputy began to walk her out of the building when the court-certified interpreter stopped to say hi.
And Deputy Lyle goes, oh, so you know her? And she turns and goes, of course I do. This is Chloe. She's an attorney.
Clay explains the situation rattled her, and after discussing it with friends and mentors, she decided to sue the county for racial discrimination. The Washington County Sheriff's Office says the deputy named in the lawsuit is still employed and not on any leave. A county spokesperson said they have a policy of not commenting on legal matters.
This lawsuit is so much bigger than me, right? And if I can give anything to anyone of just like, you know, the feeling that they belong somewhere, like that's really all I hope for.
Alma McCarty, KG.
Alma McCarty there reporting for us. Thank you, Alma. Clay says that although she's suing the county, she does still want to work there and eventually would love to work with law enforcement and other officials to address racial bias. Still to come on the story, the fentanyl crisis on Portland streets is devastating enough for the human toll that it takes. But now things are getting so bad that veterinarians are seeing dogs rush to their offices, no kidding, for fentanyl overdoses. Yes, you heard right, dogs. The signs and symptoms to watch out for in your furry friends when the story returns. Welcome back. Let's talk about the scourge of fentanyl in our communities from a new perspective, our pets, specifically dogs. Do you have dogs? We have cats. Long story. But I love dogs. And their noses are always exploring new scents, and sometimes they put stuff from the ground into their mouth. Okay, that's cool when it's a stick or a ball. Not so much when it's fentanyl, though. And yes, that really is happening. Blair Best reports.
When walking downtown Portland, the scenes of a deadly crisis are hard to miss.
That's some of the dope right there. The blues aren't strong enough for me anymore.
Fentanyl is affecting not only those who smoke it, but nearly everyone who shares the sidewalks, including dogs.
Fentanyl is fast-acting, and it can have really severe, even fatal consequences for pets.
Tess Payne, Dove Lewis Veterinary Emergency Hospital in Northwest Portland, says in just the past few weeks, they've treated 3 dogs who overdosed on fentanyl. At least one picked it up off the sidewalk.
And it might be that they actually ate the product, or they ate some bodily fluids from somebody who had ingested it previously.
The vets were able to save them with Narcan.
Some symptoms to look for could be a change in their breathing. They might have a lower respiratory rate. They might have difficulty breathing. They might have difficulty walking, less coordination than usual. They might even start having seizures.
Yeah, just really scary to hear that that's happened 3 times, and definitely going to make sure I'm looking out for my dog now walking on the street.
It only takes a second or two, a dog sees something they might be interested in and just really quickly get it before you even realize.
And turns out this isn't new to Portland vets.
It's a fairly common occurrence, whether it's fentanyl or just ingestion of prescription medication.
Yet some say it points to the larger problem facing the city.
It's dogs that are affected, but just the entire community is affected, and so it's just something to be careful of, and see if we can get some legislation or something going to try and make our community more safe.
Last week, Portland City Council voted to ban the use of hard drugs like fentanyl on public property. But now it's up to the state to get involved to allow Portland to enforce such a ban. The governor tells us she hopes to work on this during next year's legislative session. So in the meantime, there are still drugs on many sidewalks in downtown Portland. So keep an eye out when walking your dog. In Southwest Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
Thank you, Blair. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on the drama that is the Multnomah County Commission and their inability to decide what to do with around $100 million meant for the homeless crisis. Yesterday, we took you inside a commission work session where commissioners heard public testimony about what they should do with that money. And then they bickered back and forth about procedural issues, especially the fact that County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson only set aside half an hour to discuss her plan on what to do with the money. The meeting was then stopped short by Peterson, who said she had an appointment and needed to get to lunch. Her fellow councilors were, not too thrilled with that, saying they cleared their schedules to allow more discussion into the afternoon, but that didn't change anything. Normally, after we run stories like this one yesterday, we ask for your thoughts. We did not have time for that yesterday, but so many of you know the drill that you fired your opinions to us anyway.
And as far as these commissioners bickering, the chair needs to get off her rear end. Hey, 30 minutes? How much are you guys getting paid a week? How about you just sit down and work it out until it's done? This 30 minutes, what a bunch of BS. They either need to get it done or get out.
All right, thank you, Mitch. Several of you went after Vega-Peterson, with Greg writing into us, for example. The chair is either ramming through her agenda without investing in the time with staff and commissioners required to establish priorities and develop a plan, or she doesn't know what she's doing. Maybe a little of both. And Candy says Jessica Vega-Peterson needs to be recalled. In my humble opinion, I don't see any improvement in Multnomah County leadership since she was voted in. So very sad. We love your input, and you would be surprised at how many emails and voicemails that we get every single night. But seriously, folks, we do read them all, and we do listen to all the voicemails. Even if you don't see your comments here on the air, Doesn't mean we're not listening. We are listening. And as frustration grows over the homeless issue, we're getting more and more calls like this one from Joe.
I'm a frequent caller, never listened to, though, by you. And we're talking about the homeless, and I watched the county commissioners meeting and all the other stuff. I think the biggest problem that I've got with all of this is the fact that never do you ever put any of the onus of making things better on the homeless. But nobody ever asks them, do you work? Do you do anything? No. They all need our tax dollars to make their lives better. You know what? I need my tax dollars before I pay them to make my life better.
All right, hear you loud and clear. Thanks to everyone who shares your thoughts with us. Doesn't matter if you're watching this live right now or online later. We think it helps all of us think more deeply about these important issues that affect our community, so please keep them coming. Still to come on the story now, from one controversy to another, we're going to talk about abortion, specifically a new federal lawsuit filed by Oregon Right to Life concerning a law passed back in 2017 in Oregon. We'll explain how it could affect those of you who get your health insurance through your employer. That's coming up when the story returns. I think sometimes when big laws are passed, they might have impacts that we don't all consider. One example is the Oregon law passed in 2017 called the Reproductive Health Equity Act. Among other things, it requires organizations that offer health insurance to cover abortion for employees as part of that insurance plan. So, under that state law, that includes Oregon Right to Life, which actually works to stop abortion in Oregon. Get it? Interesting contradiction there. The group with the main purpose of fighting abortion is required to have insurance that pays for abortion. Their leaders don't think that's very fair, and now they filed a federal court motion asking a judge to pause the law. The filing argues that the abortion requirement violates their First Amendment rights. It also argues that federal courts have recently ruled that a similar law in California violates the religious liberty of churches there, which object to being forced to offer abortion under their insurance policies. Oregon Right to Life wants the federal court in Oregon basically to rule the same way for them. Lois Anderson is the executive director.
There should not be a law. We should not be compelled by the government to violate our deeply held beliefs. And it's pretty obvious that Oregon Right to Life is a pro-life organization. We have a over 50-year history of advocating for preborn life and against abortion.
So you have that. The court action will be defended by the Oregon Attorney General's office. A spokesman said the state will respond to the claims in the litigation. That's actually all they said, but I think they mean they're going to file some court papers to say, Judge, don't give them that injection. We'll see how it goes. That's the end of our show, by the way. Thanks for watching. Remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter is coming your way next. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you right back here on Monday.